Let's just not act like that just happened. Welcome back to the Nerdcore Podcast, the podcast that reviews movies and talks that nerd shit. I was not on the Nerdcore live show. What's it called? Overlay and stuff. No, I was not. You're lying to yourself. As always, it is the nerd that you're gonna hear the host of the show along with my wonderful co-host, Young Yoda.
What's up, everybody? And the second row, I didn't see shit.
Yep, I know. It was my fault. It was just, yeah, didn't expect that to go down as I thought it would. But
Man, you got everybody confused. They think it's a different day. I think it's like Friday or something.
yep, it's barely the beginning of the week. But as always, what's it called? It's a wonderful Monday. We are continuing on with our month, looking at the films of Federico Fellini as we look at In Half Today from the year 1963. But before we get into any of that wonderful stuff, Brad, what's up? How you doing?
Doing well, Raúl. Doing well. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Finished watching this film today. Watched and life goes on again. Love that. And I think if I'm not playing anything after tonight, I think I might just watch Through the Olive Trees, or might wait for that tomorrow.
So what you're saying? It was a good purchase. That you're really
Yeah,
enjoying
like
that trilogy.
that trilogy. Just, I mean, it looks beautiful on my TV. First of all, like those restorations, like they really didn't do it justice when watching it from the what's it called, from the Criterion Channel. Unless of course, you got like a beautiful like TV and stuff, but
Yeah.
you know, God, I was watching that on my what's it called on my TV, and it just looks absolutely beautiful, dude. So thanks for that because
You're
it
welcome.
looks amazing. It looks amazing.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I thought you would. It'd be
Yeah.
one of those that was I was looking at it. I'm like, I would buy this for me. So I know Raúl
Mhm.
would probably enjoy it
I don't know why you didn't buy Taste of Cherry though. It's like $20 on Amazon right now.
because I'm cheap.
Or you don't want to wait until like the last moment until what's it called? You're gonna wait when it gets to like what's it called? To like $40, and you're like, damn, should have bought it a while ago.
Yeah.
I'll buy it right now.
It's like Ikiru. The Blu-ray is $40, and I'm just like, I'm just watching the Criterion Channel.
Yeah, it's just like some of them like I would want to have on here, but Ikiru is one of them that I do need to get sooner or later. Seven Samurai is like $37, I think.
I honestly want the Kurosawa box set, but the thing's like over $800 on eBay.
Yeah, that's an old box set too. So
Uh huh.
honestly, at the rate they're going, I really hope that they make a new Kurosawa box set soon because like they got to be working on putting those on 4K because like those have got to be getting that 4K restoration quality now.
I'd imagine so, but honestly, there's only so much you can do with some of those movies.
Yeah,
Like, there's some of them. There's only so much restoration you can do.
yeah. I wonder like how like first of all like those negatives are old like are old
Yeah,
fucking
we're
old.
we're, we're talking older than World War II. Old.
Yeah. So I wonder how how much cleaning they need to be done, but
And
I
like I told you yesterday, there's a point where you're like, is it worth it with the possibility of me just totally destroying this and being haunted by Kurosawa for the rest of my life?
yeah. But we also know that like they also know that what's it called if they were to release a box set like of course people like us we would what's it called
Oh yeah, that would
yeah
sell out. That
yeah
would it'd be one. It'd be like sneakers. It would just you'd
yeah
have a shit ton of resellers, and then you'd have us who just sitting
yeah
there holding it.
yeah. This one is okay. So this one Ikido is newly restored. It's a what's it called 4K digital transfer. Oh, so no, it's not. What's it called? Okay, digital transfer, not an actual restoration.
Mm.
But it's still. I bet that looks beautiful from the Blu-ray quality. But
So
it's just
so
it's
does Criterion have the actual like the
negative.
originals? Yeah. Do they have those, or are they like given those to do this and then have to give them right back to like the vault of Kurosawa's family?
I think they like so first. What's it called? Of course, they go to the labs that they use to make these things,
Hmm.
and then I think they kind of go back to the estate or wherever they're being kept. Sometimes I guess that they will be kept at those labs, the specific labs that they're being done, but yeah, I would hope that we would get a new box set soon
Yeah.
because like you
Well,
know.
and honestly, it might actually go back to the studios because some of those studios still exist in Japan, like Toho.
Mhm,
Toho still
yeah.
exists.
Well, yeah, I like, especially like what's it called? I'm gonna name one example: Drunken Angel.
Hmm.
Drunken Angel is only available on Blue. It's only available on DVD. It's only has a high definition transfer. It hasn't been restored to 2K nor to 4K. That's one that I would hope like soon they could like get their hands on to kind of restore and to give us that what's it called, that restoration, because I would love to own that on a
But
Blu-ray.
that one definitely needs some
A lot of
TLC.
clean,
It
a
needs
lot of clean.
some loving, caring, and some attention. It definitely needs
Hmm.
that, just because some of that film, it's really hard to see. Like, it's too dark
Hmm.
in some areas.
Yeah, and also like what's it called, High and Low doesn't have like a 2K or 4K restoration.
High and low actually looks really
Beautiful,
good.
but imagine a 4K. What's it called of that?
Well, for really any of those, although, um, like Rashomon, I don't know. I don't know about restoring Rashomon completely, just
Hmm.
because I love those scenes of just like the rain and all that,
Hmm.
and just the way it looks.
Yeah,
That's where we come back to like Amor Sparrows. Like, you don't want to do too much because that's a gritty movie. You kind of
yeah.
want to
You
keep the
just take away a
grit.
little. You take away too much from the movie that suddenly like that's not even the movie that you watched.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or the movie you fell in love with to begin with.
Mhm. I would love for them just to clean them up and like of course don't change up the contrast or anything, just clean them up and get them to 4K transfer, because it would be really great to like get, because a lot of these like they were so like, first of all, if I remember correctly, um that box set is only DVD.
Hmm.
It's on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of these could use that bump up in the quality.
Well,
So
and from what we've seen from Criterion, they take a lot of care and
mhm,
detail, and they don't overtly change the film too much. They just
mm,
give the picture quality a
yeah.
little bump.
Like the film we watched today, that was the new restoration for in a half, which I want to say, oh yeah, ooh, because I remember the old, because I have the old restoration,
Hmm.
and it's a little, it's a little dirty. It's like, what's it called? It's pretty like, not too. It's not grainy. More say like you can tell that the negatives are like, there's spots where the negatives are kind of dirty a bit,
Well,
and
and from the beginning, it said the sound. They did a lot with the sound as
yeah,
well. Apparently, the
mhm,
sound was off in places in the original.
yeah. So I'm really happy with, so if I'm really happy with this one. I wish I don't think this one is the restoration on Criterion Channel, because I think Criterion Channel is like only uploading like certain ones, because of course they're not going to give you all the new restorations, because then that would keep you away from buying the Essential Fellini box set.
Hmm.
But like the Amarcord new restoration that I watched at MFAH, it was beautiful. It was beautiful, and I wish that that was the one that we're gonna get to watch next week. But this is the older restoration. But yeah, Criterion does some amazing work, and if you aren't on Criterion Channel, you're honestly missing out, because not only are you being introduced to some new films you probably never heard of, but also you're like the quality that they put, the time and work that they put into restoring these movies and making them look, basically like cleaned up and new. It's so much work. It needs to be appreciated. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and introduce him to Federico Fellini's Eight and a Half. Eight and a Half, Otto e Mezzo, pronounced, what's it called? Otto e Mezzo, is a 1963 Italian surrealist comedy drama film directed by Federico Fellini, co-scripted by Fellini, Tullio Pinelli, Ennio Flaino, and Brunello Rondi, who, of course, the same people that have been working with Fellini for the last couple of films. It stars Marcello Mastroianni as Guido Anselmi, a famous Italian film director who suffers from stifled creativity as he attempts to direct an epic science fiction film. It is shot in black and white by cinematographer Gianni Divanazzo, and features a soundtrack by Nino Rota with costume and set designs by Piero Gerardi. Eight and a,
Gerardi.
8.5 won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film and Best Costume Design Black and White. It is also acknowledged as an avant-garde film and a highly influential classic. It was ranked 10th on the British Film Institute's the Sight and Sound Greatest Films of All Time 2012 critics poll and fourth by directors. It is listed on the Vatican's compilation of the 45 best films ever made, best films made before 1995, the 100th anniversary of cinema. It is now considered to be one of the greatest films of all time.
Can we take a step back?
The Vatican.
It is listed on the Vatican's compilation of the 45 best films made before 1995. And we'll get into this because that's really fucking strange.
Edited by Leo Catozo, of course. What's it called? This one was not produced by Dino. Dino did not work on this one. This was Angelo Rizzoli. And it sits at 2 hours and 28. It says 138 minutes, but I think the version that we watched was like what's it called? 2 hours and 20 minutes. I think. I don't remember. I think with credits it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. 2 hours and 18 minutes here on Wikipedia.
2 hours and 19 minutes is what we watched.
Yeah, $3.5 million dollars in rentals from Italy. I'm guessing. I don't know what else. What's it called? No other money is given in here, but it was yeah, that's how much it made, and of course it's in Italian. But yeah, so this is what's it called? Once again, this is the film that Martin Scorsese said that with the last one, he said Fellini landed on the moon with La Dolce Vita. Well, with 8.5, he landed on Mars. And this is like everybody, not everybody, there's a lot of people who regard a lot of his films, but this one is mostly the one that is echoed. This is one of the greatest films ever made. This is one of Fellini's best work. Countless, directors that we love have, gone out and said that 8.5 is one of their favorite films of all time. One of them for me being, Martin Scorsese, but also like Stanley Kubrick really loved 8.5. So, this film carries a lot of praise. So, without further ado, Bradley, and of course I've got my handy book from Carrera. We're going to read a little bit of that towards the end of the review, but first I want to hear from Brad. Brad, what's up? What did you think of Fellini's 8.5?
I kind of got to echo with everyone else. This is superb. I like this one far better than I did La Dolce Vita. Probably a tie with Knights of Cabiria, though. Like, I love Knights of Cabiria. I just love that film. Just the whole simple story of it and everything. Because, again, we see Fellini through a lot of these films. He just gets more and more complicated, which isn't a bad thing if you can pull it off. La Dolce Vita, I don't think he quite pulled it off. Not like he did with this movie. This movie, like, I could follow. Like, I could follow him going into dream sequences, him going into, flashbacks. And I really like that he did that because it kept the movie interesting. And it's a long movie. Like, these are long movies. So in order to go back from what's actually happening to a flashback to a dream sequence, it keeps the viewer's attention and keeps it moving. So I don't really have an issue with pace in this movie.
Yeah, and he doesn't kind of pull it out of left field. Like, he literally starts the movie with a dream sequence.
Yeah,
like,
which apparently is one of the most well-known, openings of a movie ever, and I can see why. It's quite fantastical and just kind of crazy.
Yeah. So this is my second rewatch of this film. Of course, my first time watching this film was in my world film and film theory class when we were discussing surrealism, and we had done this film, and I watched it with, of course, my mentor, Dr. Carrera, and we discussed the film, and we were discussing it. And, at first I was like, I don't know what the fuck I just watched, but all I know is that it's masterful. It's I am nowhere near the capacity to understand, the brain capacity to understand what's it called, a Fellini, and I was just like, this is amazing. So on a second rewatch, I echo that once more. This is incredible. I mean, it truly, I mean, to an extent, a lot of Federico's work is autobiographical, And also, I also say that with a grain of salt because the man was a great liar. But
Although I do think he brings this up on how it's about a director. I
yeah.
think Fellini at this time he must have been having some,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
so the story was, of course, I've said it before. What's it called? He what's it called? After La Dolce Vita came out, he fell under a pretty bad depression. What's it called? Started seeing a psychiatrist, and what's it called? He once again, like I said, take this with a grain of salt. The man is a great liar. He's been a great liar his whole life that he lived, an incredible life that he lived. And he created the script, and he created the script to 8.5. But he had like he only knew is that his character was in some sort of rut, like he couldn't do something. He didn't know literally until the day that he was gonna what's it called get ready to what's it called finish the what's it called turn in that script. On the way there, it popped in his head, and he was like, "It's about a director who doesn't know who can't make his next movie." And it popped in there. Also, there was a lot of titles that were supposed to happen. It was at one point the first title, I think it was The Beautiful Confusion, but
well,
he ended
and here's another thing. What like they don't come out with like nowadays they have the title literally in the movie. Like eight,
Mhm.
where does 8.5 come from?
So he named it 8.5 because it's his what's it called? That's the number of films he's directed. So what's it called? If you go back, so Variety Lights is directed by him and another director, so that's half of a film.
Hmm.
What's it called? And then you have what's it called? The White Sheik, which is his first film. You have Iviteloni, his third film, his third was the second and a half. It's called, and then you have what's it called? Il Bidone, which is his third and a half film. You have after that, what's it called? You have of course the Nights of Cabiria. No, I'm sorry. No, you have La Strada, his fourth and a half film. You have Nights of Cabiria, which is his fifth and a half film. After that, you have La Dolce Vita, which is his 6.5 film, and then you have two short films after that, which would what's it called? Make
Make
seven.
one. Yeah.
One they'll make seven, 7.5, and then what's it called? You have his segment in Boccaccio. What's it called? No, wait, hold on, 7.5, and then of course you have what's it called? Because one of the short films is a segment in Boccaccio 70, and then of course you have what's it called? 8.5, which was his 8.5 film.
All right, that
Yeah,
explains it.
yeah.
And I find it very surprising that it took him 6.5 movies in order to strike gold. Like that's some determination.
Yeah, like us looking at it, we look at Kabiria and we think like, and if I would go and watch La Strada and all these other ones, depending on how I would feel about them, because I still haven't watched them, depending like us right now sitting there, we would probably think, oh, these are great. I mean, what's it called? What was going on? Like, what was
But
Fellini like?
but
What was
it's like
going down?
it's like any other great, like Van Gogh, Da
Mhm.
Vinci. They don't get credit until they're dead.
Yep, yep, and once again, it's like it breaks that myth of like La Strada, Cabiria, those two had won the foreign language film. Like even if you win that Oscar, like it still doesn't save you from the box office.
No.
Nowadays, what's it called? Now, like if what's it called? The film gets an Oscar. It's called once it's re-released, then it makes its money in the box office. But like
Mhm.
back then, it was like cool, but still, it kind of sucked.
Yeah.
What's it called to some people? And I will say though, what's it called? First of all, before I say anything, I did a pretty cool essay about this movie, a video essay. If you want to go check it out, it's on my personal YouTube channel. The link will be in the video and in the audio descriptions. But I gotta say that I believe him when he says that most of his work is semi-autobiographical. This 100%. Also having what's it called? Watched of course the what's it called? The interview with Milo. What's it called? With
Mhm.
what was her first name? Sandra Milo.
Sandra Mila. Yeah.
Sandra Milo. But also knowing the tumultuous kind of life that he had, marriage he had with Messina, and all those things that were going on. But you can tell that the film is so is like it is semi autobiographical. But there was something that, and this is the first thing that I'm gonna bring up. What's it called? I do want to say first of all, right off the bat, I love Nino Rota's score in this film. It's beautiful. That's nothing new. Like honestly, I'm gonna keep on saying that for like the next couple of movies because I love his score so much. But it's so what's it called? Wes Anderson always works with Desplat. Because Desplat and him work together all the time. They make great, what's it called, scores to accompany their films. But truly, like, you think about it, like, I cannot picture, Federico working with anybody else but Nino. And he worked with Nino up until the day that he died, until his death. And I got to say that for sure. The cinematography is incredible. I mean, once again, another great, what's it called, great framed film. But what did you enjoy from Fade in the Half, Brad?
I enjoyed the truth kind of within it all. You
Mhm.
said Fellini's a major liar, which the director in this is
Yeah.
portrayed as that, but his truths come out. So I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that, and I'll get into that in a minute. But another thing I enjoyed is I think we have another director actor like team up that is really great to see because you know how we go on Kurosawa and Mifune.
Yeah.
I think Fellini and Marcello, that's another one of those great team ups that's happening and that we're seeing. Because that, and I don't know how in the previous movie, like Dolce Vita, people were saying, oh, it should have been Paul Newman. Like Marcello, like just steals like
Mhm.
the scenes. And he's just great on screen.
Yeah.
But I also really enjoyed and I'm still trying to figure out this out on the sentence. It is listed on the Vatican's compilation of the 45 best films made before 1995 when this whole film skewers the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
He literally goes after them in ways. In one scene, he's like, in life, you're not meant to be happy. It's like, fuck.
That's what I was like looking at throughout this whole thing. Of course, like first of all, he blames the Catholic Church for him growing up with so much sexual repression. For Guido growing up with so much sexual repression, he what's it called? He attacks because of censorship. He has it for all these things. Like before the movie even has to get made, he has to go to a deacon.
Yeah.
Like it's in us looking at this now instead of us looking being alive then. We look at it and we're like, that's so stupid. Like the church the church should never have any say in that stuff. They should not have to meddle their fingers. But back then, those were the trials and
Oh,
tribulations that you had to go through.
and back then in Italy,
Yeah,
which
because the
major hub of the Catholic Church, like
because
the
what's
major.
it called? The church didn't stop having a hand in censorship until the early '70s. They weren't gone until the early '70s.
And they're probably still there in some form.
Hmm.
Honestly, in some form, it's, at least over there, I'm sure.
They stopped having a big thing in state censorship, after that. But like, you know, in a way, still, I would imagine that it was still like a societal thing to have to like look down on,
Which you
moving.
get that in any religious
Yeah,
community. The Baptists have it,
yeah,
and they have the websites where you can go on and see is this suitable for children and all that. So
yeah,
yeah, so it's a revolving thing that a lot of religious sects
yeah.
do.
But God, is Marcello incredible in this? I mean, I adore him in La Dolce Vita, but in this, so there's a lot of things different between this film and La Dolce Vita. Of course, you know, Marcello plays such a different character in La Dolce Vita, but in this character, I think he really shows off more of those chops. Like he really like the body language and the facial language that he can present on so many moments. And I point to a specific scene when he's in the theater doing the test screens.
Hmm.
Just his face constantly reading like I'm looking at this. I don't even like what I'm looking at, but I can't tell him that I don't like it, and I don't think I'm gonna do this. I hate that I'm doing this, and like the fact that his wife is there, and he's like, I hate that my wife is looking at this, and I hate the way that I'm making my wife look, and I can't do anything about it because like at the
Well,
end of the day, like I'm who I
and
am.
literally, there's a test screening in there for the role that basically fits his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
like, what are you supposed to say to that? Of like,
yeah,
this is how I feel, and I just can't tell you that, so I'm
yeah.
putting it on the screen for everybody to see.
Yeah, and of course, he has mistresses, and he has various women. He has a mistress, he has a wife, and then he has these appearances of women who he believes to be the ideal woman for him. But
And it's so autobiographical that the mistress in the movie is actually Fellini's mistress for 17
17,
years.
yeah, yep. I watched that. It was I thought it was beautiful at the end how she was like, and there's some stuff I want to keep, to myself because they keep it
And
mysterious, but like, I think that those are memories that I want to keep for myself.
and, and it was different times, and I we don't know what his and Messina's relationship
Yeah.
were at that time, and if that was allowed, because
Yeah.
honestly, I can't tell. But
Yeah.
she really did. It really did come off like she really did love him,
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Sandra.
and I read
Sandra
that
Morrow.
that Messina was what's it called? Detailed him as a long suffering of and I'm guessing that she wasn't a fan of those affairs and all. And I mean, especially if you watch Julia the Spirits, which I need to watch. I watched like 15 minutes of it. You- By the way, I think that was his first film in color, which is beautiful. I
Well,
watched.
and just the scenes that they were cutting
Yeah.
into with that interview,
Yeah.
just like, dang.
They showed that Messina was like yeah, she, what's it called, she did not like those affairs. And but you got from this, you got this kind of feeling from Sandra Milo, that like, wow, like she loved him and he loved her, and but this he was a man who was like so very complicated. He was a great liar. He was a great director. He was a great, what's it called? He was a loving, what's it called? A loving partner, but he wanted to express his love with many people, and of course I know he wouldn't want to talk. So what's it called? For those of you who don't know, what's it called? Of course, this is public knowledge, but Messina and first of all, Messina had miscarried the first child that they tried to have, and then the second child, Bev, Federico, died 11 days after being born. So he never talked about, he never, in interviews when they wanted to talk about the child, he would never talk about it. So I think a little bit of that was, kind of like a little bit of, being repressing of emotions about something, probably one of the
So,
hardest things.
serious depression for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, and the man did not hide the fact that that he had his bouts with his mental health. I mean, that story, whether real or not, he went to a psychiatrist for a long time, for a psychologist for a long time, and it shows in this movie like 100% that this is a man who, like I said in my video, I say at the core of it, he wants to be happy. He wants to be happy not just in his career. He wants to be happy in his life. He wants to be happy in his marriage. He wants to be happy in his friendships. He wants to be able to have healthy relationships with those around him. But he seems to keep fucking that up for himself.
He doesn't know how to go about it.
Yeah.
Like, and we kind of see in La Dolce Vita is Marcello wants the same thing, but at some point he just quits on that
Yeah.
idea and does a spiral. Whereas
Mhm.
this, he doesn't really quit on the idea, but it continues
Mhm.
eating at him
Yeah.
until the point where he quits.
Yeah. And
And we'll go into that ending scene because
yeah.
shit. After I watched that, I was DMing Raúl going, "Well, you think he took some inspiration from this and that?" And we'll get into that though.
Yeah. So what's it called? Of course, Dr. Carrera in this book, he says that much like Guido, that which is, he also talks about just the importance of women in the films of Federico Fellini. But like Guido, much like Marcello in Dolce Vita, he's a character who's constantly wants to go through like a metamorphosis that is not attainable. Marcello in Dolce Vita, he goes through a metamorphosis, but it's not the metamorphosis that he wants. And he goes through one where it leads him down a bad path. In this one, he wants to go through this metamorphosis. The only way to achieve that metamorphosis is the only way that he achieved that metamorphosis was through killing himself. But you know,
Supposedly,
the
now
women in
now
this film, though, the
that
women in
that
this film,
that one's supposedly
yeah.
because we don't know if that was the
Well,
dream sequence
I'll
or
read you a paragraph from here in a bit.
okay.
But he also details about how the women are kind of figures of like these incredible figures of something that is so unattainable to the men in the film. Of how like these women have things figured out and the men are constantly trying to find something to transfigure into, but the women are constant figures of being like being kept together and figuring everything out, being figured out, and just what's it called, being these unattainable objects of desire for the men in the film.
Well,
Agonists.
and I mean, you had the whole harem scene where it was
Mhm.
him trying to control them in a way,
Mhm.
and that just he figures out that's not going to happen. One of my
Mhm.
favorite scenes in this is with La Seragina.
Oh
It's
yeah.
that flashback
Um,
to his
um,
childhood and doing
ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-bum,
the rumba,
bum,
and
bum,
he gets so
bum.
in trouble for that.
Yeah.
And but I just feel like that's where he gets his first taste of like the female, like a female,
Yeah.
and he's like, and then I don't know, was he in an orphanage?
I think
Was
it was
that what
like
that was?
school. I think it was like a cat, like a boarding school or something
Like
like that.
like a boarding school where all the females are just doting on him and taking care of him, and that's really what he wants. And he
Yeah.
just wants to have all these females just taking care of him and dancing, basically.
Yeah. So what's it called? Of course, Sarangina. If for y'all who don't know, what's it called? And of course, we don't do spoiler warnings with films prior to 1969. Sarangina was a prostitute who lived, what's it called, on the beach because she was a prostitute mainly to soldiers who were coming back from war. So what's it called? She is also this kind of like goddess of sexual repression that is kind of being like what's it called shown throughout the film. And here I'll go ahead and before we anything else you want to go before we talk about like that ending because there's it's a pretty hefty paragraph that Carrera kind of goes into, but it's really interesting.
I
Um,
I mean, Ro, there's a lot in this film to
yeah,
take in, and we just don't have the time for that. This is one of those that I would choose for
cinema
the cinema
condition.
condition. Yeah,
Because there's so much like just there's so much kind of layers through this film, and I'm telling you that it's just so beautifully written and beautifully directed by Fellini. And a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I hate when movies kind of go back in time and stuff." I'm like, I think here it's like it works perfectly to kind of go back and to
it
bring.
works. It works well because if you just had a linear story, I think the pacing would be so off. It's a 2 hour and 19-minute movie. It would just feel long. But with these flashbacks and these dream sequences interspersed in it, you forget all about the pacing and you just continue to watch this great movie.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs here because I really do think that it's really interesting what Dr. Carrera brings up in here. Of course, this is from the book Fellini's Eternal Rome, Paganism and Christianity in the Films of Federico Fellini by Alessandro Carrera. Please go pick it up. I believe the paperback version's already up, so you don't have to pay $100 like I did. But like if you do pay $100, it's a damn good book. But he says like, so he begins here. He goes, 8.5 begins with Guido's dream of flying out of a traffic jam. On a seashore, a counselor on a horse with a mark on his forehead has given him the appearance of a priest in some Egyptian esoteric cult. Orders an associate of his to yank the rope around Guido's ankle that still connects him to the earth. The rope was not there when Guido had started floating in midair. Down for good, the counselor says. Guido falls back into the sea, gasps, and wakes up in a spa hotel bedroom, suddenly invaded by doctors and nurses who ask him how he feels and take his pulse. The umbilical cord has not been cut. Guido was not reborn, and perhaps he was never fully born in the first place. Towards the end, when the pressure is when the pressure to make the film the world is expecting from him has become intolerable, one of the production assistants, played by Ceccarino Michele Picardi, whispers to Guido that he will find a gun in the right pocket of his jacket. Guido crawls under the table of the press conference, and amidst the insults of the crowd, calling him clown, clown, he shoots himself. Another daydream Another daydream is Guido fantasizing about suicide so he can continue his dream. Perhaps not. Guido is no longer in introduced between two worlds, in between two deaths. Guessing that's what the French translation means. My professor speaks Italian, French, and English, so
Huh.
he is dead, truly dead, like Cabiria, and ready for the eternal life. Instead of it was only a dream, now I can wake up. He can now say it was only life. Now finally I can be dead. The happiness that suddenly seizes him makes him feel warmly again towards the real people in his life as well as his fictional characters. Guido finds out that it is right to accept and love them all, and that is a very and that it is very simple too. Love is so simple, says Garance in Marcel Carnet's L'Enfance du Paradis. I think that's how you say that. 1945. Everything is good, everything makes sense, and everything is true. Or is it? In fact, everything still looks confused, but this confusion is me. Not as I'd like to be, but as I am, he says to Louisa. Louisa is his wife in the film. Uh, Life is a celebration. Let's live it together. Accept me for who I am, if you can. With the entrance of the clowns, the film, the real one, can now begin. A film that can only take place in paradise. Or, if we are not ready to use that word, the eternal life that Guido has fashioned for himself. In the magic ring of the circus, nothing that is not good, sensible, true, and confused, but vitally confused, will ever happen. But let us be clear: the conclusion of In the Half is aesthetically gorgeous as it is ethically ambiguous. It's in a way I agree with Dr. Ketter. I do believe that he killed himself. I believe that he killed himself, and the ending that we see on this movie is the life that he wanted. He wanted to expose himself and tell everybody about how he was feeling, you know, and be
Well,
able to
and
the dance of macabre.
and he wanted to be free. That
Yeah,
throughout this whole movie, he's literally saying that. He's
yeah,
saying that to everyone. He wants to be free. He wants to
mhm,
be happy. And I think he killed himself because when I first saw this, I even sent to you. I'm like, did he take a little inkling of Bergman there
yeah.
with the macabre dance of the seventh seal,
The dance of
which
macabre.
yeah,
You know,
which that's death. That is how Bergman portrayed death in the seventh seal. Is all of them died of the Black Plague and they dance off
mhm.
into paradise or wherever they're going. And
Yeah.
that's what I get from this. I get he really killed himself at that conference.
Now, I mean, we're not alive to Federico's not alive for us to ask him, but of course, Federico was a major fan of the circus. He loved. Would you? Okay, I'm not going to answer that. What's it called? There, he loved the circus, and this ending is probably one of the best inclinations and descriptions of the circus. He kind of ends it with the circus. Everybody's kind of dancing, and he even sees his parents. His parents have been dead for a long time. And then, like I was telling Brad, like he died. And this is him in his paradise where he can finally have the happy marriage that he wants. He can have the happy friendships that he wants. In this reality that he's in, he doesn't have to talk to his producer about the film because the film is off and his producer understands what he's doing. In this reality, his parents are there, and they look at him, but they don't really want to talk with him. But they're there. And especially in this reality, he's happy. He's happy. He's what he's wanted to be for a really long time, and he can dance and sing "Kumbaya," and they can go off into the sunset.
Sorry, I was deleting that comment. But
Yeah,
yes,
good. But
yes,
yeah,
that is how I saw this. I saw this as just as the seventh seal ended. This was the way this ended. Is him finding happiness finally in every aspect of his life, and the only way he could do that was in death.
yeah. And I'm like I said, man, this movie's masterful. I mean, there's so much going on here to like, there's like big pieces of like I could spend an hour discussing about the Sarangina and what she represents and all that. I could spend like what's it called another couple of what's it called minutes, what's it called discussing even more of this film. But I
And and when I bring up the Bergman thing, I'm not like trashing Fellini for maybe taking that and using that. I mean, I have to trash Tarantino all fucking day for
did
everything
you
he's taken to
did you
use.
find the scene that he took away from here?
No, I didn't see the Tarantino one. But
It
I
was
just
when they're dancing. The American actress and the old man. The one where the girl is going like that and he's going like
okay.
That's
So when he
from
was doing the
the
twist, okay,
yeah. That was from what's it called? From that was what's it called? He took to replicate. He replicated in Pulp Fiction.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't notice that first, but I didn't doubt Tarantino probably took something from this.
God damn
Um,
it, Eric.
but yeah, just to go back to the Bergman thing, I thought it was a great way to end it
Yeah.
because anybody who's a cinema fan would get it.
Yeah.
They would get it immediately, especially in '63. Bergman's Seven Seal was in '57,
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest movies at that time. People would get it. They would
Mhm.
get like this dude is dead.
Yeah.
He's
That's the
and
dance
he's
macabre.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And I gotta say, just what's it called? That it's one of my favorite endings. I mean, just the music alone. I love it.
Well,
It's
and
great.
then he's representing because that little boy pops up like throughout the whole movie. That's the representation of him
Yeah, that's him.
leading the circus.
Yeah, and and what's it called? We ended with that man, and it's just it's just Federico's, his eye, his the way that he conveys his messages are so, like I said, they're fantastical. They're filled with so much whimsy and but like, they're such fantastical and whimsical messages, but
But
like
some of
there's
these
what's it called ways of presenting them, but they're like really, morbid present. What's it called?
and well, yeah, and just the way they're presented, just what's
Yeah,
on screen, like the giant framing for the spaceship.
yeah,
That's fucking ridiculous. It was kind of like the giant light in La Dolce Vita. It's
yep.
like kind of ridiculous. I mean, but it works.
Hmm.
It provides a message on just the scale they're looking at and what exactly and it brings you into the main character's what he's having to deal with is
Hmm.
all this money has already been spent and he has no story.
Yep, and he has nothing, and he doesn't know what he's gonna do, and he has to just what's it called, kind of accept the fact that he that, and probably that's where his career dies. Like he has to kind of accept the fact that, like, hey, he's gonna lose a producer, he's not gonna be able to work for a bit, and it's like, well, because I just couldn't get it, I couldn't freaking get it, like I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't have that idea, and in a way, that's like, it's in a way that's Federico's autobiographical, what's called autobiographical work, but in a way it's also kind of detailing like one of the biggest fears of a creative, having all these resources on, with you, and then at the end of the day, whether you sit down at that, what's it called, at that music studio, or you sit down at your art studio, that idea that you have, you just cannot put it on paper, and you can't, and it just won't come out as hard as you try, it just won't come out. So Brad, what are you going to go ahead and give Federico Fellini's 8.5?
But before I do that, I wanted to ask: have you seen the on Twitter the Hayao Miyazaki his writing or trying to write something? He's
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh, I
yeah,
only got one page written today. God damn it!
yeah, 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 yeah. What's it called? I love that. I love the pictures that have been coming out. Thank you to Twitter for also for giving me a picture of Andrei Tarkovsky and Federico Fellini. In the same room. Also, one of Kurosawa and Fellini. God, I can just imagine the conversations that were being had.
I mean, even the picture with Lucas and Spielberg and Kurosawa, it's
Yeah,
like what the hell did they talk about? Like,
it's grandpa and his kids.
yeah, pretty
Grandpa and his
much.
grandkids.
That's really what that is. But for 8.5, this movie's great. I get why it's ranked in top list all over. Um, it doesn't feel like 2 hours and 19 minutes. It really doesn't, because the way he intersperses the flashbacks and the dream sequences keeps the pace rolling great. The framing, certain parts of the film are just beautiful.
Fuck yeah.
I you know, I can't find anything wrong with this movie. It's a
Yeah.
10.
Yep. Gets a 10 from me too. At this moment right now, because I haven't rewatched Mama Record, that will be for next week. This is my favorite Federico Fellini film with, what's it called? With Nights of Caviria, right? What's it called? Well, right now, if you look at my list on Letterboxd, it's this one, Amarcord, Nights of Caviria, La Dolce Vita, and Roma, which is a movie that we're not watching this month.
I really do enjoy Knights of Cabiria though.
Yeah.
because if somebody asks like what Fellini movie should I watch,
Start
what
them.
should be my first watch? Start with Knights of Cabiria because that is straightforward and just fucking good.
Yeah, so fucking good. But we'll see what's it called. How what's it called? Where Amarcord lands. I really did love Amarcord, but that one holds a special place in my heart because it was my first screening in 35 millimeter, and it also was a movie I got to watch with Gio and a lot of my friends. So that one kind of holds a special place in my heart. But yeah, what's it called? Before we go ahead and I've got a raffle to finish up here. So what's it called? If you're a patron, you were entered into a raffle for my Parasite Blu-ray that I'm giving away because I now own the Criterion version. And yeah, let's go ahead and see who wins this. I put you all in names, and I've got one. If the person doesn't want it, they'll let me know, and then we'll have to reshuffle these out and go ahead and put them in. So the winner of the Criterion, what's it called? Not Criterion. I'm sorry, not Criterion. The winner of the Parasite Blu-ray with only the Blu-ray, no digital code included at all, is wow, Giovanni Howard.
Can we just pull another one because we know he doesn't want it?
He he is kind of interested in it.
Oh,
But
okay, but he won it last time.
no, he won the Lahain DVD.
Oh, okay,
So I'll talk to Gio. If he wants it, he'll get it.
okay.
Let's go. But we'll be back next week to do another recount if it happens. But yeah, Gio is the winner of the Parasite Blu-ray. If you want to be included in spontaneous giveaways because of stuff that I have, what's it called? That I don't want to. What's it called? Give away. You can get a bunch of cool
I
stuff.
think you need to show the cup and show them all that like all the papers are in there.
Yeah. Look, all
Yeah,
the papers are there. Those are my cup. What's it called? He won. So what's it called? As always, I want to thank you all so much for stopping by. Eric, Luis, dude that asked that weird question. Anybody else who was watching. As always, I want to thank her. As always, I want to thank our wonderful Patreon supporters who help us make this show possible. Without you all, nothing is able to be made here because you all helped us get a lot of this gear. As always, I want to thank our wonderful producers, writers, and showrunners. As always, our wonderful associate producers, Cassie and Sarah. Thank you so much. And our wonderful executive producer, Shane.
You follow our friend Shane at twitch.tv/XSRK or on Twitter at XSRK_. Love you, Shane.
Love you, Shane. And as always, our wonderful, writers, Brown Rice 96 on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, wherever you can find him. Thank you, Rice, for being a writer of the Nerdcore Podcast Network. And also our wonderful Tony.
Hey, Tony.
At Real Nerdy Dad on Twitter. Thanks, Tony. What's it called? I got to get in contact with you about Earth Girls Are Easy so we can do that episode. But without further ado, of course, thank you to our wonderful showrunner, Tamor23. Tamor, this has been a really fun month, and I hope that we've been making you proud with the content we're bringing up, and there's been a lot of fun conversations being had. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and send them out, Bradley.
All right, Raúl. Thank you being host as always. Thank you to all those who joined us in chat, even that one weird dude with the weird message. Thank you to all our Patreon supporters, all our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. And to end this, I guess what I'll say is, do some yoga, breathe, Tai Chi, something. Drink some tea. Don't let the stress get to you.
Never let your mistress be in the same city as your wife.
That's a good one, Ro.
Be better at hiding your affairs, dude.
Or maybe just don't have mistresses. That is 2020 or 2021.
A lot of marriages end in divorce. Just get a divorce. And then you can do all the fucking you want.
Pretty much. So with that well said and all, young Yoda out.